This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. The holidays are over, the decorations are down, and suddenly everything feels a little empty. It's normal to feel the winter blues after the holiday excitement. January, February, and March are by far my least favorite months of the year. It's cold and dark, and I have to get some extra vitamin D on board. I also need to keep my regular scheduled appointments with my therapist. So if you're feeling that post-holiday funk, I definitely suggest you checking out BetterHelp because maybe it's time to talk. You might also be one of those people like me who makes New Year's resolutions and you get super motivated. So maybe you need someone behind you to hold you accountable and come up with a plan to meet your goals. BetterHelp is super convenient, totally online. You have a therapist right at your fingertips whenever you need them. So head over to betterhelp.com/wifeofcrime1 to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/wifeofcrime1 for 10% off your first month.
These are violent criminals, so they're not going to go down easy.
ABC Tuesdays.
Let's get this done.
The Rookie is back.
We have 2 new rookies starting today.
Howdy.
Being a cop is stressful 24/7. Every year on the job is different.
And Training Day
We have a serial killer at large.
never ends.
We need an ambulance!
The Rookie. All new Tuesdays on ABC and stream on Hulu.
This podcast is an unscripted, unedited conversation about true crime. We take the cases very seriously, but I don't take myself seriously at all, and neither should you. Welcome to Wife of Crime.
So, Russ, I know unsolved cases are really frustrating to you, but this case is so close to being solved that I feel like it can happen at any minute, so I have to tell you the story. This past weekend, we were in the mountains, staying in a cabin, and it reminded me of a case about a family that was brutally murdered. This is the eerie case of the Keddie Cabin Murders. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Wife of Crime, a true crime podcast where I tell my husband, Russ, true crime stories, and he reacts to them.
What's up, folks? It's Russ, a.k.a. I'm still on vacation, don't tell my job.
And this is Jess, a.k.a. Little Wheezy.
How excited were you? And she's wheezing. Don't act like someone didn't give you that nickname.
Well, I was about to say, I put a post on Instagram on a story, and because we talked about last episode that I never have a good AKA and that I think too much and I can never think of one. So I asked you guys on Instagram what would be a good AKA, and my girl, Heather, said AKA Little Wheezy because when I laugh...
I think it was Lil Wheezy.
Lil
Wheezy. Like Lil.
Yes, because when I laugh, I wheeze. So I thought that was really hilarious.
That was a good one because you all know when Jess is silent, she's never silent. She might be laughing. You might not have heard that.
Well, I thought it was so funny. A lot of people did really good suggestions, to be honest. But that one really made me laugh out loud.
Hey, there's always a winner and there's always losers. The rest of you guys lost.
No. Maybe I'll steal some other ones for next time.
No, they disappeared. We don't know how to get it back.
That's true. I did remember a few, though. So this weekend, we just got back from a little mini weekend getaway vacation in the Poconos. It was really fun. We had a good time.
Yeah, that was cool. Brought the dogs.
We brought the dogs, and that was great for them because they're Bronx dogs, so they don't get to lay in the grass all the time. Lucy had the time of her life. Biggie's more like a person, so he's like, what's this grass? I'd rather sit on the deck with you guys.
Yeah, he's probably like, look at this stupid dog, watching Lucy roll around. But I've been taking Biggie a lot of places lately. I found out that Uber has Uber Pet, where you can take a dog with you. So I've been taking Biggie to Bronx Brewery.
Yep.
And then the bartender there knows Biggie likes ice, and she gives him ice. And treating Biggie nice is the way to my pockets. So I tip her too much.
That's true.
But I appreciate her very much. If you treat Biggie nice, then we homies.
That's true. Definitely. We love our dogs. They're like our children.
Shout out to Bronx Brewery. We need like a beer sponsor.
We do. We love Bronx Brewery. Go buy their beer if it's available where you're at.
Well, just tell them I sent you and said Wife of Crime is the official crime podcast of the Bronx. How aren't you guys
sponsoring them?
Homies.
Yeah, it's true. Well, in the Airbnb, something happened that drove Russ crazy. It was pretty dangerous, but you handled it so well. So one of the doors, I don't know if you guys remember, this was, probably 2 years ago now. We talked about on an episode so long ago when Russ goes to an Airbnb, he brings like a special lock thing for the doors.
I think it's called Add a Lock, and I got it on Instagram. So like not Instagram, on what's the other
Amazon?
Amazon. I don't know. I was having a brain fart again. And you can put it on any lock. And, now even if they have the key, it can't be opened.
Yeah.
You would at least have to hear someone kick the door. And that's my thing. I at least want to hear someone come in. Mm-hmm. So at least I can stand a fighting chance or run.
Yeah. Well, you have those. And he always puts like chairs. One Airbnb, he put like chairs under the doorknobs because he really wants everything to be locked up nice and tight and secure.
Well, but you got to do that because if somebody had previously had a key to get in, anyone can make a copy of a key and then just stand above you.
No, definitely.
And what if they like jerk off on you or something? Ew,
Ross.
Crazy people do crazy things.
That's gross.
It is, and I don't want nothing gross happening to me.
I get it.
So I locked the door.
It was just a random thing to say. It was gross. But anyway, I
was trying to think of something that I really wouldn't want to happen to me. And that's it.
Aside from being murdered in your sleep.
I'd rather be killed. Just don't even do that to me. Just put your penis away and stab me in the neck.
Anyway, so one of the doors, our sliding glass door at our Airbnb, the lock was broken. But I have to say, you just thought of a quick solution in the moment. You didn't get too angry. You were like, all right, let's find something to prop in the door so that no one can open it. And he did. Well, and he was okay.
I thought I could fix it. I busted out my Leatherman.
Yeah,
because we went to the woods, so I got the Leatherman. If you don't know what that is, ladies, look it up. Or if you do, shout out to you rednecks who likes to fix stuff. But the city boy got a Leatherman too.
Yeah, you busted it out. You tried to fix the door. Didn't work. So then we found stuff to keep it closed pretty much.
Yeah, so I found an ironing board that was the exact same size of the door, and you just wedge it in.
Yeah, and it worked out.
And I'm still alive because a killer definitely tried to open it while I was sleeping, and I saved our lives.
You saved our lives. Absolutely. Last week, we released our Patreon episode for the month of August. We did the D.B. Cooper documentary. We released 2 episodes, part 1 and 2. So it's a 2-parter, 2-for-1 special over on Patreon. And they thought it was really funny, as usual, because we're always making people laugh.
Oh, shit. I forgot to look up a review.
Oh.
God damn it.
You were on a really long streak.
All right. I don't know what this one is. I just going off the title. So I didn't read the rest of it. It's from TC Willie 34. Realized I'm a female Russ. 5 stars. I finally understand what my old man goes through living with me. Sorry, not sorry, Jess. You knew it when you met him. You could have got out then. With a laughing emoji. Not that you wanted to, because Russ is awesome and probably would fight the sidewalk if you tripped.
Aww.
I can tell you both put a lot of work into the podcast, which I love. I love popping a Corona and sitting down for what I call Jess Crime Tales. Florida chick out.
Aw, that's good.
That's dope, as she's probably like chewing on her gator jerky.
Her gator jerky?
She's in Florida.
That's what people from Florida do?
I think so.
That is random.
Unless she's in Miami, then she's listening to this in a thong with a Corona. It depends on what part of Florida.
Gator jerky in the woods, like in a
swamp,
or thong on the beach with a Corona. That's the only 2 options if you live in Florida. All All right. Patron shout-outs.
All right, these are the Patron shout-outs. You know, we got a stupid amount of episodes over there, which there's a number, but I don't know what it is. So, and if you sign up for Patreon, you get a shout-out. So shout out to you, Patreons. You are Kathy, Dominique, Rachel, Brandy Rose, Jess, Shayna, Amy, Dana, Crystal, Relisha, Jade, Ruby, Jamie, Harleen, Hannah, Claire, but I like to say Clary. Like Silence of the Lambs.
Clarice.
Oh, shut up. Rachel, Cassie, Jessica, Alana, Amber, Amy, Sheila Sharp. I messed that up probably. Lauren, Jenna and Gavin Hopkins, Sophie, Megan, Lana, Everest, Shorty. Nicole. I think this one would say Black Magic. It's Black MJC. And Caitlin. So, cheers to you guys.
Cheers.
And there were also, I forgot to put in, there were about 3 Latoyas. Fuck.
3 Kims, Latoya,
3 Kims,
and
Latoya,
Tina.
and Tina.
Come on, bro. DMX is rolling over in his grave.
No, that's my boy. I was in his documentary. He featured me.
He did.
I was in there twice.
You were in the documentary twice. That's true. All right. Well, like I said before, this past weekend, we spent time in the Pocono Mountains. We love going away, either upstate to the Catskills or in the Poconos for weekend getaways, because when you live in New York City, the people, the traffic, the smog, it just gets to you sometimes. You need to get out in the woods and feel like you're a part of nature.
Then our dumbass goes over there and eats food and be like, this bagel shit.
We definitely
This fucking pizza's garbage. You call this pizza?
It's not an exaggeration.
Yeah, like, look at all these dudes with thong sandals on. They ain't even got no J's over here or nothing. Like, we're so stupid.
So we stayed in a small resort community, and they have lots of woods, deer, and multiple cabins. The community we stayed in this weekend reminded me of a case, a pretty infamous case, about a family that moved out to the woods in Keddie, California, and lived in a cabin community called Keddie Cabin Resort. The vicious crime that occurred in Cabin 28 is incredibly eerie and still unsolved today. But there's so much speculation about who committed this crime, and there are 2 cops in Keddie now that have began reinvestigating the case recently, and I really think pretty soon it will finally be solved. So this is the case of the Keddie Cabin Murders. Are you ready?
Yes.
On the morning of April 12th, 1981, at around 7 a.m., 14-year-old Sheila Sharp headed back to the cabin that her mom, and her siblings had been living in for the last 2 years. So this is cabin number 28. Sheila had spent the night at a neighbor's cabin the night before, and when she walked into her family's cabin at 7 a.m., she discovered a horrible scene. She found her mother, her brother, and her brother's friend brutally beaten, tied up, and murdered.
Damn.
And her younger sister, Tina, was missing.
How old was her sister?
She was 12.
Oh, shit.
Sheila and her mom and siblings had moved to Keddie 2 years ago in the summer of 1979 because Sheila's mom, Sue Sharp, decided to move her children across the country looking for a better life because their father, James Sharp, was incredibly abusive.
What state is Keddie?
It's in California.
Okay.
So her husband, James Sharp, was incredibly abusive to her and her kids. And Sue's brother, Don, he lived out in Keddie, and he told her, look, move out of Connecticut, come over here to California, and just get away from this dude because he's terrible. And she has 5 kids. And he was like, I'll help you kind of get on your feet. Just come out here to California. And she was like, you know what? That's a good idea. This is a support system. It took a long time for her to finally get up the courage to leave. that situation, but once she did, she at least had her brother out there to kind of support her.
Oh, I thought that was the brother of the kids, and like he was the older brother. Like I'm older than my brother and sister, and I left the house before they did.
No. It was Sue's brother.
So it was the kid's uncle.
Yeah, the children's uncle.
Got it.
Sue, the mom's brother. So when they first got out to California, times were like really tough for them. Sue escaped this bad, situation, this bad guy, but unfortunately, she had hardly any money, no job set up out there, and she had 5 kids to feed. And her kids were young at the time. They were all below the ages of like 14 and under. Sue and the kids moved into an RV that her brother Don had until she could find work.
Shout out to the brother Don, man.
Yeah. So despite all 6 of them being crammed into an RV, the family was actually really happy because they were finally out of this abusive situation.
Love that.
So after a few months, Sue found out that the owner of the Keddie Cabin Resort, which was previously like a vacation resort place, like a bunch of cabins on a property, well, he'd fallen on some hard times with some like lack of tourism because Keddie is a very, very small town. And he decided to convert some of the vacation cabins into long-term rentals. Cabin number 28 was recently empty because the sheriff at the time, Sylvester Thomas, he just moved out of that cabin. So now it was an empty cabin. And Sue talked to the owner of the Keddie Cabin Resort and was like, all right, I think I can afford this rent. She just got a job. She signed a lease and moved her and her 5 children, John, Sheila, Tina, Rick, and Greg, all into this cabin. And they were all so excited to like finally get their life started in California and have like an actual house to live in.
That's cool. Have a nice fresh start. I feel that when I was a kid, before I was like 4 or 5, it's funny. I remember some of these stories though, and that I remember some of these times. Mm-hmm. And my mom was moving from place to place to place to place. Mm-hmm. And I was sleeping on floors in places, and she was sleeping on couches. And it's funny how I remember these things because I don't remember much else, but I do remember a mouse running across the floor and there being a Boy George picture on the wall. My mom jumped on the bed.
Really?
That's like my earliest memory. But then I remember when my mom first got a place, she applied, she went through housing, and we walked into the place, mm-hmm. and there was no furniture in there. She opened the door, and we sat on the floor, and we're just so happy. There was no furniture, no nothing. It was completely empty. Yeah. And just sat on the floor like,
Like, finally, you have a place.
And even though it was low-income housing, but this is our home. Who cares?
Yeah. And that's what this owner of the resort, he was pretty much catering to, like, a low-income housing, people who needed low-income housing.
I don't remember this from when I was 4. That's nuts.
Yeah, that is. It's cool how memories pop up like that. So on the evening of April 11th, Sheila went over to spend the night at the Seabolts cabin. So the Seabolts were a family that lived next door in cabin number 27. Her brother John and his friend Dana, which is a guy, they were both about 16 years old, and they went out to this town called Quincy, which is nearby, and they were like hanging out with friends. So Sue stayed home with the younger boys, Rick, Greg, and their friend and neighbor, Justin Smart. So there's 3 little boys, Rick, Greg, and Justin. Justin isn't one of the siblings. He's just a friend of the kids. And Sue's at home with them. And Tina was hanging out at the Seabolts cabin as well, next door, but she decided to come home at 10 p.m.
Geez, I'm not going to remember all these names, so don't be mad when I ask you questions.
That's all right. You'll follow along. It's a lot of names. So about 10 p.m., like I said, Tina comes back home, but her sister, Sheila, is the one that's decided to spend the night.
Well, this will clear this up for me. How many? 5 children total?
There's 5 kids total, right? But in the house that night was 4 of the kids and 2 of their friends. So that's why you don't have to really worry about keeping track too much right now.
All right, so 4 kids in the house.
And 2 of their friends, so 6 kids in the house.
Jesus
Sheila was
Christ.
the only one spending the night away.
And Sheila's the other daughter that's a little older.
Yeah, the oldest daughter. So now we're back to the morning of April 12th. Sheila walks in at 7 a.m., finds her mother, Sue, and her brother, John, and his friend, Dana, tied up with electrical cords, beaten and stabbed to death. Blood was everywhere. There was knife marks in the walls and in the carpet. Sue was naked from the waist down and gagged with her own underwear. Then they put electrical tape around her mouth and like the bottom of her head to keep her underwear in her mouth, gagging her. She was stabbed in the neck and the chest, and she was, hit in the head with an object. So she had like blunt force trauma to her head. But despite being naked from the waist down, the autopsy came back with no signs of sexual trauma, but still like they're unsure of what was going on there. John...
Sounds like there was some torturing going on.
Yeah. John had suffered numerous blows to the head, and his throat was slit. And Dana, who is John's friend, he's not even one of his siblings, he had been beaten in the head and was strangled to death. So it was like a really brutal scene for this girl to walk in at 14 years old, walking in to see this. There was also a bloody steak knife that was bent at a 30-degree angle on the floor near the bodies, along with evidence, and cops thought that it was a hammer that was used because of like what the injuries looked like. They believe it was a hammer that was used to hit them in the head, but they didn't find it at the scene. So Sheila immediately ran back over to the Seabolt's cabin, frantically asking for help. And the oldest kid, Jamie, ran over to the house and found out that one of the bedrooms had the younger boys in there.
I was about to say, where the other kids? There were 6 children there that day.
Yes.
And right now only 2 are there, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So they find Greg and Rick, who are the brothers, and their friend Justin are all still in bed asleep.
What?
He woke the boys up and he told them to leave the cabin by climbing out the window because he didn't want them walking through the living room, obviously. And a point that a lot of people bring up and find totally nuts is that all 3 of these little boys slept through this.
How old are these little boys?
They're all around the age of 9.
Okay, so they can't tie up a grown woman.
No. Mm-mm.
That's what I was saying. So if they were like teenagers, maybe they could have tied up, whatever. But
well, that's not what happened. So the people get really confused on how these boys, all 3 of them, could sleep through this.
maybe they sleep like you. You refuse to get out of bed.
Yeah, but I still get woken up by everything. So the older boys were 16, and I'm sure they put up a fight. That's why the scene was probably so brutal, because they were 16-year-old guys, the ones that were murdered. So I'm sure they put up a fight.
Unless it was like another group of men, because and you get scared, but hopefully you do put up a fight.
But there was blood everywhere. The crime scene photos clearly suggest there was a struggle. So the fact that these kids slept through that boggles everybody's mind. It's one of the biggest sticking points in this case is like, how can these kids sleep through something as brutal as what that scene indicated happened?
Yeah, because there were like knife marks in the wall and stuff. It was so like that. Like, what were they missing? And someone was on the wall? And
yeah,
like, it seems like there might have been a bit of a battle, unless they had him tied up and they were intimidating him, like just punching the wall, stabbing the wall, or like, just kook shit.
I don't know. Interestingly, the Seabolts next door in cabin 27, they said they heard nothing unusual throughout the night. But the couple in cabin 16 down the road said that around 1:15 a.m. they were woken up by the sound of muffled screams. So they assumed it was probably an animal or something because they looked outside and saw no commotion. And they thought like maybe it was like, cats fighting outside or some type of animal outside making noises. And they just went back to bed. So the police get on the scene immediately and a lot of mistakes start happening. The crime scene was not secured. Multiple people walked through it and had access to it. And despite Sheila telling the cops that she couldn't find her little sister, Tina, who was only 12 years old, they didn't immediately start looking for her. They didn't form a search party. To me, that's a huge drop of the ball. Like, there's a 12-year-old who was kidnapped. You would think that, okay, these people, God rest their soul, but they're dead. There's a girl out there who was kidnapped. We got to go find her. And they didn't immediately search for her, for a while, a couple hours.
To me, my first priority before getting justice for these murders would be to save anyone that's alive.
Yeah, exactly.
And see if I can that'd be like number one.
Yeah.
And then from there, obviously you secure the site or whatever, but then from there you try to find out who did this.
Yeah.
But even though finding out who did this can lead you to possibly the person that took the 12-year-old girl.
Exactly. That's logical. After a few days, the FBI got involved to investigate the abduction of Tina Sharp because it's a federal offense. So a child abduction is a federal offense. So a lot of times the FBI will get involved with that.
I wonder how old, like what age do they step in? Like what if someone's 17, would they step in? Or is it like child, like a little kid?
I'm actually not sure about that. I don't know like if there's a cutoff age, if they think you're just a runaway. But when it comes to this, her family was murdered. So clearly she was taken away.
Yeah.
It's not like she just ran.
For sure.
But after a few weeks, when no remains were found and no ransom demands were made, the FBI backed off and handed the case back over to the sheriff's department. And this was controversial. This was controversial at the time. A lot of people were angry that the FBI didn't continue to investigate the kidnapping because, like you said before, they thought if they would have continued searching for Tina and they found her abductor or abductors, that would lead them straight to the killers. But Sheriff Thomas described the FBI's presence as unnecessary.
Well, Sheriff Thomas is a dumbass who's probably territorial.
Yes. So Sheriff Thomas, he conducted
This is my jurisdiction, boy.
Yeah, he conducted a messy investigation, and it seemed like his ego was pretty large, and he didn't want to give up control to these agencies. You guys already know because we have been talking about them for a while now. Via Hemp is by far one of our favorite sponsors we've ever had, okay? We use their products all the time. Maybe you're a little like me. You're a little anxious. You have a hard time settling down. You're kind of wound up a lot. If that's you, Via Hemp products are for you. Check out their website. You will find something that speaks to you. Maybe you're like Russ. You have a hard time sleeping because you have bad nerve pain or chronic pain. Then Via Hemp is for you because their gummies will help you get some quality sleep. Maybe you're looking to have a really good time. Maybe you just really like edibles. You want to laugh. You want to get the munchies. You want to watch a movie and have a really strong belly laugh. Then Via Hemp products are for you, okay? They're literally for everybody. So head over to viahemp.com, promo code wifeofcrime1 to get 15% off your first order. That's VIIAHEMP.com, wifeofcrime1 for 15% off your first order. Last year, Save More Money was the most popular New Year's resolution in America. Clearly, a lot of us feel like our money is slipping through our fingers. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm not the best saver, and I don't know much about investing until I started saving and investing with Acorns. Turns out you don't have to be an expert at all because Acorns will recommend a diversified portfolio that fits you and your money goals. And I always thought that when people say, ooh, I invest in stocks, that they had a ton of money or something. Well, you don't need to be rich. Acorns lets you invest with the spare money you've got right now. You can literally start with $5. And you know you guys are spending that at Starbucks on these fancy lattes. So skip the coffee and invest with Acorns. You don't even need a ton of time. Like you can just sign up and start investing within 5 minutes. Head over to acorns.com/wifeofcrime or download the Acorns app to start saving and investing for your future today. That's acorns.com/wifeofcrime. So according to the sheriff's department, there were little to no leads. Despite one of the murder weapons being found on scene, the knife, and an unknown fingerprint on one of the doors in the living room. There were multiple suspects questioned, but they were all later released, and they didn't really take any of them that seriously.
What year did this happen again?
1981.
Oh, best year of all time.
Why?
For reasons unspoken. But, so, what I was thinking is, fingerprints back then, probably because they weren't, like, good computers.
Mm-hmm.
you couldn't probably get a fingerprint and run it through a database. You probably had to have a fingerprint and then find someone who you think is guilty and then try to match it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, oh, here's a fingerprint, run it through.
Well, they had multiple suspects. I don't know how that went down, but none of them, they didn't really stick with any of the suspects. Like, they all got released. So, Justin Smart, right? The friend of Rick and Greg, one of the boys, who all spent the night in that room and slept through this entire ordeal.
One of their pops was over the house, and that's why they didn't say nothing.
Interesting that you say that, Russ. You never cease to amaze me with your instincts on these things.
Because over case after case, we're probably close. I've done over 100 episodes now, which is crazy. This is the most I ever talk in my life. I've never spoken this much until we started this podcast.
It's true.
I just like to sit in the cut and Jess says something, and then I grunt. I'm like, mm-hmm.
It's true.
Yeah. And then also before the podcast, she would always tell me, "Shut up, that's not funny."
Okay, but you were saying over 100 episodes, case after case, and you didn't finish your sentence.
Oh, what have I solidified myself as?
Russ the Profiler.
Yeah, we got to go back to the episodes where you're telling me, "Shut up, you ain't no profile." It's so stupid.
I don't remember saying it was stupid.
Probably not. That was probably off the air. Like, that's so dumb, Russ. You got to stop. Like, woke up dead ain't going to be a thing. Like, all this stuff.
Well, Justin Smart
winning
was the friend of Rick and Greg, and he was one of the boys that slept through this entire ordeal. Well, a couple weeks later, he came forward and said that he had, in fact, woken up, and he did see a lot before the murders occurred. So the sheriff actually put him under hypnosis to try to get as much information as possible from him.
Do you believe in hypnosis?
I can't say I do or do not believe.
You believe in everything.
Because I don't know. No one's ever tried to hypnotize me. I don't know.
Well, you've been smitten by this charm, so. But besides that.
Yeah, I've never been under hypnosis.
Like, they always do it on cruise ships. They'd be like, bark like a dog.
Yeah.
It's all an act. Like, they pick their friends out of the audience.
Well, he put him under hypnosis.
So we're going to get responded to by a hypnotologist.
Hypnotist.
Oh, it's not a hypnotologist?
No.
Well, it should be.
But
you're like, it's real. I could do it to you.
Well, I don't think anyone could hypnotize Russell.
It can't work on me.
No, I don't think so either. He's too strong-willed. Justin Smart was only 9 years old, and he came forward and told the sheriff that he had in fact woken up, and he did see a lot before the murders occurred, so the sheriff put him under hypnosis to try to get as much information as possible from him.
Was the sheriff a hypnotologist?
No.
Or did he call in one?
He called one in.
He had one on speed dial. Get out of here.
He really did.
This sheriff doesn't secure locations, but what he does pull out is a hypnotologist. Get out of here. That's his move.
He really did. He really did.
This dude's a clown. In New York, we don't like clowns. We don't even let the circus here no more because we don't like clowns. We don't even let Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey's.
So Justin says that he heard men's voices and he peeked out of the bedroom. He says that he saw two men yelling at Sue Sharp, one with long hair, one with short hair and a mustache, and both of them were wearing glasses. He said that the two older boys, John and Dana, came in the cabin after the men were already there.
Oh.
And they all started fighting.
Good for them boys, at least going out trying.
Yeah. He got scared and ran back into the bed because he got scared. Then Tina, the 12-year-old girl, opened the door to where the boys were sleeping to try to come in. And one of the men grabbed her and slammed the door.
I believe him.
And took her, leaving the three boys in the room untouched. So based on this, the sheriff's department hired a local artist to make a composite sketch of the two men. The FBI...
God, I hate these local artist sketch things.
Well, the FBI offered to send their composite sketch artists to make them, but the sheriff's department insisted on using a local artist instead, someone who never made composite sketches before.
He said, my boy Bob that works at the hardware store.
Yes.
He's a good drawer.
Yes, he did. So on top of being a lazy investigation,
whose man's is
hiring a
corn
hypnotist, and now insisting that a local artist be used instead of the FBI's composite sketch artist.
But how does he have this authority?
Because he's a sheriff.
He called in a hypnotist.
He's a sheriff.
I've never heard a worse situation in my life. You call in a hypnotist and a drawer.
Yeah, an artist. He's a local artist that he knew. He brought him in, and they made this composite sketch. And of course, it's not good. And that was it. And then after that, nothing developed, and the case went cold.
I hate stupid people. You know what it is? I hate stupid people that are know-it-alls. There's some stupid people that are really funny.
Mm-hmm.
But if like you're a stupid person that thinks you know everything, that's the worst type of person.
No, it is. And clearly he had a huge ego because he refused to allow the FBI to help. They're the FBI. Like, why wouldn't you at least take their offer on a composite sketch artist?
He probably was trying to get his homie paid. Like, hey, if you draw this, I could pay you.
Mm-hmm. So 3 years later, on April 22nd, 1984, a man was collecting bottle caps in a town called Feather Falls, which is about 100 miles away from Keddie, when he came across a human skull. He called the cops, and after searching the area near where the skull was found, they also found a blue nylon jacket and a pair of Levi's, which was the outfit that Tina was wearing the night she was abducted. The clothing in the skull was later confirmed to be that of 12-year-old Tina Sharp. So let's talk theories, okay? There are a few. The prime suspect in this case was actually Justin Smart's stepfather, Martin Smart.
Is
just
that
like you said?
Is that the kid that said he saw stuff? Or
yes. He was originally looked at because 2 days after the murders happened, he told police that a hammer was missing from his tool set. And after looking further into him, cops were told by his wife, Marilyn, that Marty and his friend Bo was his best friend, and he was staying with Marty and Marilyn in their house for the last few months. He was living there.
I feel like Bo is always an accomplice. If anyone like, my boy Bo gonna help me.
Well, Marilyn told the cops that Marty and his friend Bo were burning something in the early morning hours of April 12th, before Sheila discovered the family. Also, Marty was physically abusive to Marilyn, and Sue and Marilyn had become close friends over the last 2 years. So Sue, being a victim of domestic violence herself, told Marilyn, you don't have to put up with this shit. I got the courage to leave. You don't have to put up with this. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be beaten. You don't have your kids don't have to be beaten. You can leave him. They became friends, and Marty obviously felt some kind of way about Sue and her being friends because he thought, Sue was encouraging Marilyn to leave him. People think that this made Marty really angry, and it could have been a possible motive. So years later, Marty and Marilyn finally did separate, and Marty moved out to Nevada. He wrote a letter to Marilyn that has become a huge piece of this case and a huge reason that people link Marty to the crimes. In the letter, at the end of the letter, he states, quote, "I've paid the price of your love, and now I've bought it with 4 people's lives. Now you're saying we're through? Great. What else do you want?" So this letter was given to police, but they never entered it into evidence or even pursued it.
Was it given to this dumbass deputy? Sheriff?
Yes. Even after Marilyn confirmed that it is her husband's handwriting. So this is used, this letter is actually used in a lot of sources to prove that Marty is the perpetrator. But I looked further into this letter and I watched a couple of YouTube videos talking about this case. And one of the YouTube videos I watched, the guy, talked about this letter. And actually, when you read the full letter, it's actually 3 pages long. there's a whole section in the top portion of the letter where he's talking about his 4 kids. Marty is talking about his own 4 kids, and he's talking about how he sacrificed so much to be a father, and he sacrificed so much to have these kids in this family. So then when you read the full letter, at the end, when he says, I've paid the price with 4 people's lives, it kind of sounds like he's talking about his own 4 kids.
It's easy to take things out of context.
Yes.
Like, imagine if you just took things I said of this podcast without hearing what you said beforehand, or like, or like, you should kill him. Like, they just took that out of it, or
yeah,
like, I'm like, I hope he dies, or then they could convict me for anything.
Yeah. So, a lot of sources cite this as a reason to say Marty did it. But when you actually read the full letter, it's really questionable because he does talk a lot about his own 4 kids. But a few years later, the hammer was discovered in the lake right near the cabin, and it matched the type of hammer that was used in the murders, as well as the hammer that Marty said was missing from his toolbox.
Wait, didn't we do this already?
What?
I'm having deja vu. I feel like you've told me this story.
No. Mm-mm. In Nevada, Marty started seeing a therapist, and according to the therapist, Marty admitted to the murders, and therefore the therapist, who is a mandatory reporter, had to call the FBI, and he called the DOJ, and he said, Marty admitted to me during a session that he murdered these people, but they dismissed it as hearsay because none of the sessions were recorded, and the therapist didn't take any written notes or write anything in his chart about it. He just called and said that, and that's the only evidence he had. He also told the therapist that he passed the polygraph that the sheriff's department gave him because he knows how to beat polygraphs. But like I said, the DOJ and the FBI, they pretty much just dismissed this as hearsay.
I mean, how credible was this therapist? I don't know.
Yeah, that's what they said. They're like, how credible is he? We don't know. There was no recording. If they had a recording of him saying it, then they would have taken it.
But now, who said that? Was it the sheriff?
No, the FBI and the Department of Justice.
So even FBI and, all right.
Yeah, they even dismissed it. So since it's unlikely that one man could do this by himself, it's also thought that his friend Bo, his best friend, was the other killer. Because Bo was a parolee, he had a really sketchy past, and he was associated with the mafia in Chicago. But there's no forensic evidence that can link neither Marty or Bo to the crime. It's all circumstantial. There's like no forensic evidence at all. So now another theory that circulated over the years is pretty nuts, and it's kind of a stretch in my opinion. We'll see if you think it's a stretch. There are some that believe Sheila, the 14-year-old daughter, Sheila, that she orchestrated the entire thing. There is a blog called Keddie 28, and it's a blog all about this case. And there is a few people and one source in particular on this blog that claims Sheila hated her mother because Sheila was being molested by her father, and Sue knew about it for years and did nothing. And this is why she helped orchestrate her mother's murder, but it went wrong when her brother and her brother's friend came home in the middle of it and witnessed it. I don't believe this one, personally. I think it's bullshit. And the dude that writes this everywhere, he can come at me. I don't even care because I think it's bullshit.
No, don't come at Jess. Come at me. I got your back, son.
This lady, Sheila, has been...
I want all the smoke.
This lady, Sheila, has been fighting for over 30 years for the sheriff's office to solve this case. She's currently working with the new sheriff and the retired cop that reopened the Keddie case and are investigating it. And she's spoken openly about how happy she is that they care about her family. So I really don't think that she had anything to do with it, but it is a theory that circulates.
I mean, it's worth looking into everything, but are you just making this up? Like, what are your sources?
So the last theory that circulates online is that the boys, the older boys, were involved in dealing drugs. Like, they went out to Quincy in the town. They were selling drugs. And then this was like they got followed back to the house, and it was kind of like a drug deal gone wrong. But there were no drugs found on the scene. There were no drugs found on the boys. And there was really no evidence based on their friends and stuff and talking to their friends that there were that they were dealing drugs. So that one's kind of a stretch as well.
I mean, the best one now is like the one that I originally thought of. Like, it was one of the little boys' dads, and that's one of the reasons they wouldn't leave the room, because little boys are afraid of their dads.
Yeah. So did Marty Smart murder the Sharp family and abduct Tina? Did Sheila orchestrate the murder of her mother, but it went awry? Did two unknown men enter the Sharps' home that night, murder them, and take Tina when she saw what happened when she came home and witnessed it?
It's all a lot of maybes.
It's all a lot of maybes. But in 2018, they found unidentified DNA on the knife. And get this, now it's 2018. We do have a database. We can put it in DNA database, and we can see if the person is still alive or not that belongs to this DNA. And the DNA belongs to a living person.
And who is that?
We don't know yet.
Get the hell out of here.
But until now, at least they have the ability to test these things.
At least they test the DNA.
Because
so now they have the DNA of the killer, most likely.
it's an unidentified person. So yes, it's probably a killer. And according to the cops that are investigating this, the person is alive. So we're still waiting for it to develop. But that's what makes it, to me, seem like it's really close to being closed. This is the closest they've come in 30 years of closing this case, because now with our DNA, science.
The DNA shop is on some new missions. We're finding better ways. We're able to scan your DNA through cameras now as you walk by.
Oh, are you?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's non-touch DNA. We're
Non-touch DNA.
Non-touch. That's our new technology.
Well, why don't you call up these two dudes, hit them up, tell them that you have this new technology, and we'll see if Russ the Profiler can solve the case.
I'm like, how you guys know this? Do you guys have the non-touch DNA
Scanner
yet?
Okay.
All right, if not, then back to the drum board, fellas.
Well, that's the case of the Keddie Cabin Murders. And interestingly, I made a TikTok. I don't know if you remember, but I made a TikTok a few months ago about a guy named Dustin McKisson who was claiming that his dad was a serial killer. Do you remember that TikTok?
Yeah.
And he said his dad was a serial killer, and he has all this evidence of it. Well, he claims that his dad is the serial killer, and one of the crimes he committed was this one, the Keddie Cabin Murders. Now, Dustin McKisson has since taken a lot of his stuff off of line. He had a lot of people speak out about how big of a kook he is. He did this whole GoFundMe, remember that, where he was like asking for money to have his father sit down with him. It got a little sketch.
I'm very anti GoFundMe unless it's like,
well, unless it's giving it to people who need it, like a family who has, family member has cancer and they need help.
yes,
like
but I need to know that the money's for people that need it.
Yeah.
I'm not finding some random person on TikTok, but if, kid is sick and it's real, or your dog is sick, I donated to many people sick dogs.
Yeah. So a lot of his stuff's been taken down, but he claims that his father was involved in this crime, but it hasn't been substantiated. So anyway, I wanted to tell, what?
If we all knew that we could find 1 million people to give us $20, we would all do it.
Not by doing some sob story.
I'll cry.
No, I'm not. No, you won't. So I really wanted to tell this case because of these new developments, because I did do this TikTok a couple months ago about this guy, but then also because this case is currently being investigated. And I have a feeling that within the next, I don't know, months, maybe even years, it will finally be closed.
Well, I could make this prediction that if they do close the case, Jess is going to make a TikTok on it. So stay tuned, motherfuckers.
I will. I like doing updates on cases in TikTok.
Yeah, that's our thing.
But I do have my personal opinion is I can totally see the Marty Smart, theory. I could see that being true. I'm not saying for sure that he did it, but I could see that being true. But Marty Smart is dead. So even if...
I need to know how these cops know that the DNA from this person is alive. And then I could drop my Marty Smart.
I'll have to research that more because, to be honest, sometimes you ask me questions that I don't know the answers to, and then I just kind of look like dumb because I don't know how
You
they
look dumb.
know.
You researched a lot of stuff.
Well,
the problem is you don't realize how smart my questions are.
I don't.
You're like, God damn, I thought he was going to be drunk. See, I didn't even drink that much this episode.
You didn't. It's true. Sometimes I'm surprised at the questions you ask. Like, oh, wow, you thought of that?
You guys want to know a secret? This episode, one of the cans that I opened was a Diet Pepsi.
Oh, you're a fraud.
Nuh-uh.
You're a fraud.
And I have some White Claws here, and I actually have this bottle of Bacardi on my side, and I was like, oh, I should just take like a little swig and shot. But Jess like, don't do that.
I don't care.
She doesn't try to stop me from drinking when we're recording. Only before. She's like, don't get too drunk before.
Well, yeah, that's true. All right, everybody. Well, have a wonderful week. Check us out on Instagram at Wife of Crime Pod, and Facebook at Wife of Crime, the Crime Family, and Patreon at Wife of Crime Pod, and TikTok at Wife of Crime Pod. And, you know, let me know in the comments on our Instagram posts and Facebook posts if you know anything about this case and what your theory is. I like talking theories. I really do. And patrons on the Patreon, you post your theories there. We'll discuss.
Yeah, and go to wifecrime.com, get some dope-ass merch.
Oh, yeah.
If you ain't feeling swaggy, I got your back.
All right, everyone. Have a wonderful week. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Peace.